Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys' Magic. This is Hunter, David, Steven, and Shane. Say what up, guys?
Good day, my peoples.
What's up, guys?
What's up, nerds?
We are back with another episode of the Commander Grays. That's right, we are on our final episode. It is the Precon Legendary Creatures from Modern Horizons 3. That's right, we're going through all of the Precon face and backup commanders, talking about what we thought as the potential commander of a deck themselves, and giving them a grade. And then at the end, the average grade between all four of us. So, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because let's get started. This first card is from the Graveyard Overdrive deck. It is Disa the Restless, 2 black, red, green for a 5/6 legendary creature human scout. It says whenever a Lurgoyf permanent card is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, put it onto the battlefield. It also says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a Tarmogoyf token. Shane, you had the Shane, you went ahead and upgraded the Graveyard Overdrive deck using Disa the Restless. If you guys haven't already seen that, check the link in the description for that video. We have the $100 and $300 versions. What do we think of Disa the Restless, Shane?
I thought she was really fun. The top half of her was kind of, at least the way I played it, memey. I think David quoted me on, for the first time we played it at least, I milled 1. So that part, you could build into that a little heavier, I guess, but just out of the box, it was, not the greatest showing of that top part. But the bottom part, let me tell you, I had so many Tarmogoyfs, and just being able to attack each of my opponents and getting a Tarmogoyf that was first maybe at 2/3, quickly became at 3/4, but it was like a 5/6 by the end. It was really cool to just deal damage and then make a pretty beefy butt. But again, they're kind of capped, so that was kind of a bummer. But the deck was fun. It was a little slow, I will say that too. A little slow, but I had fun with it.
Would you say building this out of the box or building it as itself is better? Because I feel like a lot of the times out of the box, this wasn't really going in the direction that the specific Disa the Restless wanted to go.
I mean, out of the box, at least you get a lot of the, not like a lot, but you get a good amount of goyfs, or like, sorry, Lurgoyfs. I mean, that's kind of cool. Like, luckily, they're not that expensive.
Don't even get the original Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, you didn't get that one. You didn't get the original Tarmogoyf. You didn't get the new one from the set, being Modern Horizons 3. That one was a bit pricey, but all the cheaper ones you kind of did get, so. I don't know. It was a cool cut. I'm just going to say it was cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting direction in, as far as going Lurgoyf, like Kindred. I don't know if it's that doable yet, because there is plenty of Lurgoyfs, but not enough.
I agree.
It's weird.
I mean, it only took us like what 50 sets before we could get like a good energy like thing going.
You're saying this is the groundwork?
This is the groundwork.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It could be. I don't think that there's enough goyfs currently to make that like a legitimate Kindred. At the same time, I mean, like the bottom portion of the card is pretty neat. Whenever you deal combat damage, you make like a 4/5. So like the token production there is very real. Those are pretty meaty tokens.
Yeah, in these colors, the amount of Lurgoyf like things are 13.
Yeah, I mean, you can also put Shapeshifter, even like cool stuff, but
I mean, this deck was very reliant on having like Maskwood Nexus effects. I think just having to throw one card into your 99 to make a deck come is it's a little unfortunate, but I mean, it was pretty fun to watch. You mill the 1.
To be honest, I'm not very high on this card. I think it's cool. It's cute. I understand like why this was included in this product, this Modern Horizons. This one's not doing it for me though.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. We will start with Shane. Shane, what are you giving Disa the Restless?
I liked the Precon. I do like Tarmogoyfs. Like you said, it wasn't in the damn deck. Why? But this card is at the helm. I'm gonna give it a D, I think.
Yeah, I think, Steven, you mentioned the groundwork is there. Hopefully they print more Lurgoyfs and this card will get better. But until then, it is a D from me as well.
Yeah, this card is a D for me. It's a little uninspired.
I mean, I think I will give it a C. I do think that it can hum pretty well if you add the right things to it, kind of like Chain already did to that tech upgrade. I'm really big on that last ability. Being able to make a token of a Tarmogoyf is pretty strong.
Yeah, Disa the Restless is going to get the average grade of a D. Moving on to the backup for the Graveyard Overdrive deck, it is Coram, the Undertaker. 1 black, red, green, 0/5, legendary creature, human warrior. It says it gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest power among creature cards in all graveyards. It also says whenever Coram attacks, each player mills a card, and during each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a spell from among cards in graveyards that were put there from libraries this turn. Once again, Shane, you had the ability to upgrade the Graveyard Overdrive deck using Coram exclusively over on our Patreon. If you guys wanted to see those videos, link in the description. But what do we think about Coram, Shane?
Oh boy, what do I think? I think that this was much more of an aggressive card than Disa. Like I was saying, Disa might felt a little slow. This card, on the other hand, felt kind of explosive. It was maybe a little fragile, but it's not going to be growing its butt. But it's not unheard of to, like, the turn after dropping Coram, turn him into, let's say, an 18/5, which I had the privilege of doing. It's crazy. You can dump really big toys into your graveyard, making him larger. I think it was great. And these colors kind of want to do that already. Like, fill your graveyard up pretty easy with some other dredge or just anything. Yeah, Coram was a real deal for me.
Yeah. And you could do it as like a combat trick too. If you swing in with Coram and then be like, oh, in responses to no blocks, I'm going to entomb for 1 mana and then put a Yargle or Multani in my graveyard. Now you're taking 18 commander damage.
Yeah.
Surprise. I think it's pretty cool. I think, David, you were also high on this card. This seems like I mentioned Yargle Multani. This is kind of a card you want to kind of maneuver that deck into, right?
Okay, so here we go. What you just mentioned is correct. So I do have a Yargle and Multani deck, and it is kind of functional on the same premise of, like, you want to have, like, a commander with a hugely just, like, absurd amount of power, and be able to capitalize on that, just like killing your commander or killing your opponents with commander damage, and then also being able to do things like drawing a ton of cards off of things like Return of the Wild Speaker kind of effects. This one I'm not entirely sure is actually better. It does offer a third color, so that's kind of cool. I think that my downside here being is that, like, this does require a little bit of setup. And it does, because it requires more setup, it also gives your opponents more interaction. Like, this is a really cool card, and it does some really cool stuff, but it is also incredibly fragile. Like what you mentioned, like, yes, you can play those turns where it's like, okay, I'm going to entomb at instant speed, and then now my commander is incredibly scary and, like, does all this crazy stuff. At the same time, your opponents can also be like, I'm going to Scavenger Grounds at instant speed, and now your commander's a 0/5, and you are potentially in a lot of trouble. So, like this is just really swingy to me.
I mean, if your opponent had a Scavenger Ground, then obviously you're not going to do the thing.
No, you're not going to do the thing. But my point here being is that, like, if I just hold a Scavenger Grounds, if I just have one in play, like, I have a silver bullet in play that, like, the second you do something to make me interact with you, I have a means of just, like, shutting your deck down. And I don't really like commanders that have that like silver bullet, that boogeyman that they need to look out for, of like, okay, I need to kill this player because I know that they play graveyard removal, which, let's be real, your decks should all be running graveyard removal, so that realistically is all three of your opponents.
Yeah. I get
Susceptible to graveyard shenanigans. Agreed.
No, I do enjoy Coram a lot. I think that it's pretty cheap really early on, which is pretty nice. I like that it kind of leans into the mill, so it kind of helps you with its power. I think one of my favorite parts about this is the last piece of text, being able to play a land card and cast a spell from among cards in graveyards that were put there from libraries this turn is pretty strong. I do understand that there is that whiff potential, but even if you're hitting a land, being able to play a land card and cast a spell, I think it's pretty fun for me. That and the commander does it itself, and then if you run any kind of like mill effects, it's just going to get a little stronger as well. So I think this card, even though David said is very swingy, it does have a little bit of an extra play style you can kind of lean into.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. We will start once again with Shane.
I'm a bit higher than I was on Disa. I'm actually going to go up to a B on this guy.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to agree again. I think Coram for me is also a B.
I think Coram is a more enjoyable play pattern for me. I don't actually think he's better. I'm going to stick with a C.
He's better. It's a B.
Coram, the Undertaker, gets the average grade of a B. Moving on to the Tricky Terrain deck. That is right. It is helmed by Omo, Queen of Vesuva. It's 2 and a hybrid green-blue for a 1/5 legendary creature Shapeshifter Noble. It says whenever Omo, Queen of Vesuva, enters the battlefield or attacks, put an everything counter on each of up to 1 target land and up to 1 target creature. It also says each land with an everything counter on it is every land type in addition to its other types, and each non-land creature with an everything counter on it is every creature type. David, you had the ability to upgrade Tricky Terrain using Omo. Once again, if you guys wanted to see the $100 and $300 upgrade videos, check the description. What do we think about Omo, David?
Omo is incredibly interesting. It is a very unique approach to a Simic commander. Like it's a lands and a creatures matters deck at the same time, and it does something that's really cool. Like this is how you are able to like get Tron activated in a game of Commander, or be able to like really be able to win the game with like a Maze's End. So like there's really cool stuff that you can do here. I think this is a deck that I was incredibly high on whenever I first saw it. However, the more I've played with this deck, the more I've started to realize it has a super highly repetitive play pattern. Where you are very specifically trying to find the exact same pieces in the early game every single time. And I know that like every deck wants some degree of consistency, but like this is a deck that you really want to be able to find like one of the Urza lands, or you really want to be able to find like Cloud Post. You really want to be able to find some of your creatures that allow you to give you like card draw advantages. And when you don't have those, everything counters kind of feel weird. Like it's either that the deck is really humming and doing well, or it doesn't matter if your squirrel is a dragon knight as well, because it doesn't do anything else. So I don't know. This deck is really strange. It's kind of like the expression of like a jack of all trades and master of none. I forgot what the second part of that is, but it's basically like ragging on the fact that like if you don't have a very good lane that you're in, like are you really good? And I feel like that's actually kind of where Omo comes in.
Yeah. I still think it's a lot of fun though.
I mean, it was fun to watch you. I'll tell you that much. And you kept saying, I'm not doing anything, but I mean, it was kind of cool to watch you do nothing, but I didn't think you were doing nothing. I thought you were doing something.
He was doing everything.
He was doing everything. Yeah. I liked it.
Don't get me wrong. It's a very cool card. It's just that like the more that I played around with it, the more I felt like the deck kind of homogenized. Where it's like, okay, I found the best play line of like to the point where it's like the deck really kind of stumbles if you don't get those. So this is a deck that I feel like it can lose to itself, I think, a little bit too frequently.
Yeah,
I think it's incredibly fragile if you're building it like with a bunch of Lord effects, right?
Right.
Because if Omo leaves, literally Omo is the thing that turns on the everything counters. So then your creatures no longer have the synergy with each other of being everything.
Luckily, she's cheap.
Unless you have like another Maskwood Nexus. I completely agree. But I mean, if the table wants to be super mean to the Omo player, it's destroy Omo continuously.
I don't actually even think that you necessarily even need to do that. This is another deck too that like really struggles to be able to recover from board wipes because she is kind of slow at putting everything counters on things. And like what you mentioned, the everything counters only do something whenever she's in play.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of ways you can attack this deck.
Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. David, we will start with you. Omo.
Still really like this commander. I think it's incredibly unique. I love the overall design of it. In fact, actually, I did pick up this Precon. I'm going to give Omo a D.
I can't go that low. I am going to give Omo a C.
I can't go that low. I think with the versatility of being able to give yourself an everything of each creature and also lands, I understand the fragility of Omo, but at the same time, I think that it's very fun, and the things that it can do is just nuts. So I will go all the way up to a B here.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick back down to a C.
Omo, Queen of Vesuva, gets the average grade of a C. Moving on to the backup to Tricky Terrain, it's Jyoti, Moag Ancient, 2, green, blue, 2/4, legendary creature elemental. Says when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone in this game. And it also says at the beginning of each combat, land creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is Jyoti's power. Once again, if you wanted to see the upgrades to this, being the face commander, Patreon, link in the description. Dave, Jyoti is very different from Omo. What do we think of Jyoti?
Jyoti is very, very different. Omo is kind of like a slow build-up engine. Jyoti is a card that drops and just like drops the hammer along with it. This is a really cool card. So like this also, once again, taking Simic in a little bit of a different direction. You care more about man lands than anything else. It makes man lands for you. It does a very good job of that too. So like it kind of incentivizes you to cast this multiple times. And there are a lot of ways for you to just be able to like swing in with a little creature that otherwise would have been like a 1/1, and then suddenly like it's an 8/8. I mean, like Ink Moth Nexus or Blank Moth Nexus are very, very real threats. And because a lot of your man lands, the way that they function is like they're only creatures on your turn, it limits your opponent's opportunities to interact. So like any kind of sorcery speed removal is really not going to be effective against them. Cyclonic Rift is hilarious against this player because you're not getting rid of most of their problems. And then this also, like, it helps you to ramp. So in the case that Jyoti does end up dying, you're totally fine. You're going to be able to recast him, and your opponents are kind of punished because now he's coming back with more Dryads.
Yeah.
So I actually do like this card a lot. I feel like this one it's much more resilient, and it's also much more aggressive. I like this one.
Yeah, the amount of times your little 1/1s were, surprise, they're 5/5s. I'm like, what? Why are they 5/5s?
On each combat too. So
Yeah.
even when you're getting attacked, they're bumped up.
It's just really funny because I remember when I was talking about this card, I was super high on it, and I just remember David absolutely shitting on this.
So one of the wonderful things here is that we spend so much time with these legendary creatures because we do build these decks. It gives us so much more of an insight because now like we have the experience of like, okay, I'm not just talking about what I think about a card versus more like what I've learned about that card. And I have learned that Jyoti here, sadly, the deck is not built for this card, but this card is it's powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that top part, I'm going to say it. It's very reminiscent of, like, Rosh's ability, David.
Nah. Rosh doesn't make forests.
You're right, but he makes something when he gets whatever. It was a bad analogy.
I don't know. I think this card's pretty cool. Just the fact that you can start just really causing a lot of damage based on how many equipment or just how much pump spells you have on Jyoti itself. You are going to be a problem at the table.
Yep. This is a good card.
Let's move on to the grades. Dave, Jyoti.
I'm going to give it a B. I like this one.
All right. I'm still going middle of the road, though, because I do feel like it wants to make those forest Dryads every time you cast from the command zone. It is going to get expensive, depending on how many times you've cast it. I know you're in Simic, but it's a C.
It makes a land every time it ETBs.
I'm going back up to B with Dave, yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because it makes the mana to help cast it again.
Jyoti, Moag Ancient gets the average grade of a B. Moving on to the creative energy deck, it is Satya, Aetherflux Genius, 1 blue, red, and a white for a 3/5 legendary creature, human artificer. Got menace. It's got haste. It says whenever it attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of up to one other target non-token creature you control. You get 2 energy counters. At the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice that token unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. I had the upgrade to this deck. If you guys wanted to see the 100 to 300, links in the description. I think this card is very powerful. I think this might be the best energy commander that we've seen. That's just my personal opinion. I know people are going to be like, but Liberty Prime. This card just comes down, swings, probably is not going to die right away because it's a 3/5 with menace, and just makes a copy of whatever else you have. It's so good.
Yeah, that came back to bite me in the ass, the menace.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree.
This is one of those like Talia of the Vast kind of effects where it's like, oh, I'm gonna like put a threat like into play immediately. Although this one doesn't drop it from your hand, you have to have it in play. But like this gets out of control as soon as it swings, and it's very good at doing that. So it does it very quickly.
I'll help you. It is a little reminiscent of her, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that the other creature that it's copying doesn't have to swing at all. So this comes down turn 4, you play something bigger turn 5, and now you're swinging with that as a copy. So it just, and then you just keep them around if you have enough energy. Just build that. Getting 2 energy every time you do that ability is just really good too.
Yeah, the way you built this too, I think with all these new energy cards, man, you'll have no problem just amassing a huge stockpile of energy. Like turn 5 or 6, you had like 20 energy. It was dumb.
It was a lot of fun, you mean?
Sorry, it was a lot of fun. I was having a lot of fun smiling.
Dumb fun.
Dumb fun. I think we're all kind of in the same boat there, making token copies of things for free. Pretty good. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. I will kick us off. I'm gonna give it I want to give it an A, but I think I'm still gonna give it a B.
I'm not. It's an A.
You know what? Because it is so it's so difficult to deal with because like of the fact that it has haste and with the menace aspect too, like it if you kill it, it just comes back and starts this thing again. I'm actually gonna give this an A.
Hunter, just be brave, man. I'm gonna give it an A as well.
I'll be brave. I'll change my grade then. It's
Nope.
an A.
No takesy backsies.
I'll let him have an A.
Satya, Aetherflux Genius gets the average grade of an A. Moving on to the backup, it is Cayth, famed Mechanist. 1 blue, red, white, 3/3. Legendary creature, dwarf artificer. It's got Fabricate 1. It says other non-token creatures you control have Fabricate 1. Also has another ability you can pay 2. Tap it, choose 1. You can either populate or proliferate. Yeah, so once again, if you guys want to see the backup version with Cayth at the helm, Patreon. Yeah, so Cayth, I built this deck in a way that I was going to do a bunch of damage in terms of a lot of ETB effects, dealing a bunch of damage, because giving everything else Fabricate 1, just coming in with an extra body all the time, gets very out of hand very quickly. And let me tell you, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, Perforos being your secondary main commander.
I tell ya, I didn't have a lot of fun playing against this card. I got
It
put
also
down.
has the ability just to go ahead and create another token if you have a token on the field to populate.
Yeah, I know.
I think that really kind of being the thing too is that like despite the fact that yes, like the ETB punishment effects, like Perforos or like Impact Tremors, those are all very good with this, but like this goes so wide so quickly that I feel like it doesn't present an opportunity for your opponents to actually attack into you. Because like you have this army of 1/1 servos plus like whatever else you have populated, and then if you want to, you also have that proliferation, which like I know that that's not the direction that you built it in, but like it's still like it provides an additional outlet for you to be able to interrupt your opponents, to maybe like make your creatures a little bit bigger if you want to do something like that, or if you want to, you can play around I guess with the energy or infect if you're really mean. But like there's a lot of really cool directions that you can take this card in. I just feel like I don't know. She has like enough passive value stapled onto her that is just kind of insane.
Yeah,
Very much agree.
I made the deck as well with some plus and counters just because she does have the ability to proliferate. So like I did add a Cathar's Crusade because not only does this go wide, but it can also just grow very tall with proliferate. So I don't know. I think this card's a lot of fun.
I didn't like the fact that you had that at instant speed. Like, I'm just salty about it, I think, but it's so stupid.
Instant speed, make another token.
It's so stupid because if you do have what they were alluding to with his Porphyros or Impact Tremor, something that pings you, when you're low, you have a gun pointed at your head, and Hunter can do whatever you want. Like, you gonna attack me? Okay, well, I'm just gonna populate and you're gonna die.
I mean, yes, that's kind of what happened.
That is alluding back to a very specific sequence of events that happened, and I do apologize. I apparently did not math correctly. I thought I was getting you low and pressuring you, not getting you dead.
Hey. Fun.
Happens. But yeah, Cayth is a lot of fun. And I like the fact that the face commander and the backup commander for this deck is actually the same mana cost. It's the first one we've seen so far that does that. And the only one, actually.
At least out of this cycle.
Out of the cycle, yeah. It's nice. Nice to be able to swap it. Let's move on to the grades. I'll kick us off. I like Cayth. I'm still going to give it a B.
I'm going to give it a C.
2 bodies, 1 creature. That's still really good. I'm gonna go with. I'm sticking with a B on this one. I think this card is also still very good.
I would agree. I think that the face is a little better. Still really good though. B.
Cayth, famed Mechanist, is going to be a B. And last but certainly not least, it's the Eldrazi Incursion Precon deck, helmed by Ulalek, Fused Atrocity. It's a hybrid colorless white, hybrid colorless blue, hybrid colorless black, hybrid colorless red, and hybrid colorless green. For a 2/5 legendary creature Eldrazi, it's got a Devoid. It says, whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you may pay 2 colorless mana. If you do, copy all spells you control. Then copy all other activated and triggered abilities you control. You may choose new targets for the copies. Steven, you did the upgrade for the Eldrazi Incursion deck. Once again, description. What do we think of Ulalek?
I mean, it was Eldrazi and it did incur. It was very fun. Probably the best Eldrazi commander to be released to date. Just being able to access to all 5 colors gives you the avenues to build all sorts of ways. I will say that building these decks with budget restrictions was a bit hard because obviously you want to put all the big smashy hurdy guys into the deck and they cost a decent chunk of change, especially with this deck getting released. Everything went up in price. Things have kind of slowly came down a little bit, especially in the Modern Horizons 3 world. But it was very fun. I think Ulalek is insane. Being a 2/5 with a big butt comes down pretty early. I mean, I didn't really have any issues with mana when it came to casting this commander. The only time I think I had issues was I wanted to cast my big smashy guys and copy them, and I didn't really have the extra colorless mana to cast them. If it wasn't for Echoes of Eternity, I don't really think I would have been able to copy much, which is kind of sad to say.
I think Ulalek is extremely powerful. I was very excited to actually pick up this deck. Look at this. I have the actual card. Yeah. Because I don't have an Eldrazi deck, and I wanted one. Yeah, look, Steven got it too.
Look at all these flexers.
So, they're flexing. I think it's very powerful. Just copying anything. Like we just talked about Satya doing copying for free. Yes, this is costing 2 colorless mana on top of whatever you're casting. But that's the entire stack it's copying that you own. And that is very cool.
If you are a fan of figuring out the most complicated stacks, you're going to love this card because we've been in a conversation for over 20 minutes on what is happening on the stack. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty aggressive. Just trying to figure out how you want to stack certain things to get the most amount of, good things to happen, and then just adding like a card, like I said earlier, Echoes of Eternity to that mix. It really just kind of like sets things up for a whirlwind of insanity. Uh, I will say that when you do have enough mana and you ramp pretty hard, I don't really think there's a lot of stopping this. You know, unless somebody has a board wipe, because you honestly just can overrun the board very, very quickly. There was a time in the $100 upgrade where I was kind of worried. I didn't really have a lot on the field. Next thing I know, I have 6 creatures, and it's insane. It really is a fun commander.
Your turn.
David's turn to hate it.
Yeah, I actually do not like this card. Feel free to roast me in the comments below, please. It's cool. It's a 5-color Eldrazi commander, and that is the absolute best thing about this card. I actually think that this is incredibly slow. I don't care for the ability on this card. Eldrazi are already, for the most part, incredibly expensive. If you do want to build around like Scions, I think this is a really cool route to go with it, and I think that that's kind of the direction I would want to take this Eldrazi in. The big Titans and stuff like that, most of those are legendary, so you can't really copy them anyways. And it's not like I'm going to have like 14 mana laying around for me to do so. I think that's kind of being my gripe with this, is that like this is... It wants to be an Eldrazi deck, but it disincentivizes me from putting the big, impactful Eldrazi in the deck. And then past that point, like if you are going that route, it runs into the same kind of issues that every Eldrazi deck does, of like, you're going to sit back and dirtle turtle for a couple of turns, and your opponents are going to be able to see that and have a very large window of opportunity to interact with you, and they can shut you down pretty hard. This I don't know. To me, it's like it's the problem with an Eldrazi deck. Especially with an Eldrazi at the helm, kind of like the last Precon that we got with the Eldrazi, of just like, I'm going to play my lands, I'm going to try to ramp a little bit, I'm going to do nothing for the first 5 turns, and I hope that my life total is above like 10 by the time my commander hits play.
I think there's a very big difference there, because you are 5-color and you can ramp a lot better than just colorless.
I mean, don't get me wrong, yeah, 5-color is a benefit of this card. But I think that's kind of where the benefit stops, and that's why I was alluding to like the playing around with Scions, because then you can play around with the little devoid Eldrazi that are so prolific in this deck, and I think that's the direction you take this in. It's not the traditional Eldrazi Kindred.
I mean, just to add on to it, anytime I try to sculpt a hand, it mainly I didn't even, if I had like the best Eldrazi in my hand, I would basically not care, because if I didn't have enough mana sources to cover it. So essentially, like, unless you're building like a way to draw cards and do other things and ramp, which in this deck you can do because you do have access to the 5 colors, you do kind of also take a hit on what's in the deck already. And I think that's kind of where the struggle was with kind of building this deck, because it does come with a lot of fun pieces, and all the fun stuff you want to add are these Eldrazi and colorless spells. But then you're like, okay, well, now I need to ramp. I need to add these ramp spells. And then you're getting rid of all those other possibilities. And I also will add on to that, most of the time, a lot of those ramp cards are telling you to go ahead and find a basic land, which there are only 5 in the deck. And if you have those on the field already, and most of which those land that you're ramping for are basic forests, it's kind of shitty, because this deck came with no like basics other than the one of each. So it's a fun deck. It's kind of hard to pilot, and you're really looking for Forsaken Monument to just kind of add all that extra colorless. And if you don't, it's like David said, you're dirtling pretty hard. I didn't really do anything for like the first like 6 turns, and I'm just sitting there looking at Hunter with 50 creatures on the board.
Well, that's the thing, though. You got to think about this as a commander, not necessarily commander of the Precon, right? So if you built this commander the way you wanted to build it, how would you take that? Because I think it would be pretty good.
I mean, if I built this commander the way I want to build it, it probably costs like $6,000.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the issue too, is that like if you are playing an Eldrazi Kindred deck, like it's the cost of playing the deck effectively. Like if you want to be able to streamline it, you are going to be running Mana Crypt, you're going to be running Mana Vault, you're going to be running like these very expensive, like very real money expensive cards to make the deck function. Because if your ramp is a Cultivate, you're moving too slow.
And then somebody casts Farewell, and then you just kind of scoop. Or you cast Warping Wheel.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to the grades. Steven Ulalek, what are you giving it?
It's my commander, so it gets an A.
I that's pretty good. I like
Is
that.
that how we're gonna do this from
I
now on? Okay.
I like this deck a lot. I've already shown you that I bought it. It's a B for me.
It's not my deck. So I'm not gonna give it an A. I'll go to B though, sure.
I don't think this card is any better than Zuladoc, and I'm pretty sure I gave that one a D. So I'm gonna give this one a D too.
Crazy.
Well, the average grade for Ulalek is going to be a B. And the final card, which is the backup to the Eldrazi Incursion, is Azlask, the Swelling Scourge. 3 generic mana for a 2/2 legendary creature Eldrazi. It says whenever Azlask, the Swelling Scourge, or another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. Has another ability, you can pay a white, blue, black, red, and green. Creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Scions and spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. Steven, you upgraded Azlask on our Patreon. What do you think of this card as a commander?
All right, so let's talk about the better 5-color Eldrazi commander real quick. This is a completely different build. It's almost nuts because you can build this so many different ways. You can build this in the way where you care about the Scions and Spawns and the Annihilator and really making a terrifying board presence. You can build this to where you don't even care about Scions and Spawns because it does say creatures you control get +X/+X, where the experience counters come into play. There are so many experience counter commanders that you can add to this, which makes this deck really fun and hum very well. I just think that it's insane, to be honest with you. I will say I haven't had a chance to pop off yet with this, and I think it's for a very good reason. I think that this is kind of like when this shows up at the table, you're like Annihilator 1 on all these Scions and Spawns. It is kind of scary if you're the opponent. But in my opinion, it's so much more fun than Ulalek. I understand you're able to copy things and do some other shenanigans with the other guy, but this comes down cheaper, it's more fun, and it cares about things dying, which happens constantly. Because it also says another colorless creature you control, and doesn't care about tokens, so it's fantastic. You can just sack all your Scions and Spawns in response to do other things, and it really pops off very quickly.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I feel like you're forgetting the fact that you said giving things to Annihilator 1. You can give them Annihilator 2 or 3 or however many times you want to pay Wooburg, because that's
Yes.
just continuous.
You
Yes,
act,
you can continue to do that.
you act as if paying Wooburg is easy to do. I think Annihilator 1 for the most part is probably fine.
I'm just saying.
I mean, if I swing at you with 10 Scions, I don't need 20. You know what I mean? Like,
it's overkill, I know, but like you can still do that. Plus, you're getting +X/+X for however many times you pay into Wooburg.
You're right, because my life total matters whenever I have no permanents. This doesn't win via damage. This wins whenever you have beaten your opponents into submission. They no longer have things, and they just scoop.
David, what are you talking about? This card doesn't win.
Actually, I like this card significantly more than the last one we just talked about.
I'm just saying it gets hated out and doesn't get to do anything.
Yeah, David. Sure does.
All right. Okay. Here's the thing, though, is that like, and I think that actually is probably a very important point, is that this is an Eldrazi. Eldrazi come with a very significant amount of hate. So just like sitting across from this and staring at a commander that I'm like, okay, well, this can give a lot of things Annihilator. This is going to be very high on my kill on sight radar. So like, it's a cool card. You need to be able to get this thing to like actually have its wheels start turning. Otherwise, it literally does nothing. And it does give your opponents that window of opportunity because like you need to be able to have this in play with Scions probably, or just I guess other creatures that you're going to be able to sacrifice to get those experience counters. And then you also have to have Wooburg. Is this difficult to do? No, it's not. But is it a hoop to jump through that's going to give your opponents the window of opportunity? Yeah, it will. But I mean, this, like you mentioned, this is a very different deck. You build this one very low to the ground. You take advantage of that 5-color, and you just make a ton of Scions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I said it myself. Like that ability of just giving your Scions and Spawns Annihilator. Just put a Maskwood Nexus down, and now everything that you control is now a Scion or a Spawn. It's
I mean, we
just
could probably also add like a Karn's Bastion and like a Contagion Clasp or something like that too.
funny.
I mean, look,
Deep cut, sorry.
here's the thing. Yes, obviously you're going to build around the card. I don't think
Yeah.
it takes much build around for this to actually still seem like a very scary threat. If you swing 1/1/1 at me with Annihilator, I'm gonna be upset.
I would be upset too.
I would be upset too, for sure. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades. Steven Azlask, what do we think?
Well, you know, it is my commander,
It's his damn commander.
so it's got to be an A.
I think it's very good, but I'm still same with Ulalek is a B for me.
I think I just gonna give all Eldrazi B.
I like this one significantly more than the last one. I'm gonna give this a C.
Solid.
All right. Well,
God damn.
Azlask, the Swelling Scourge, gets the average grade of a B. And that is going to do it for us today. If you guys liked that video, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Comment down below. Obviously, did you guys agree with our grades? Probably not. Let us know down there. And tell us why we were wrong or any of that stuff, you know? Always interested to hear guys' opinions. Also, while you're down there, go ahead and check the description for all of the videos I mentioned multiple times throughout this entire video. If you guys wanted to check those out, as well as links to all of our social accounts. That's Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Guys at Magic for each one. On the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It really does mean the world to us. If you guys wanted to see what they are seeing, which is not here on YouTube, including, once again, I talked about it in the video, all of the backup 100 and 300s to the Precons for Modern Horizons 3. Check the link in the description as well and consider subscribing. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.